and welcome back to another episode of Crazy Stupid Marketing, the show where we talk about some of the crazy stupid things that happen in the marketing arena so that hopefully you don't have to make those kind of crazy stupid marketing decisions, but instead can make good, authentic, results-driven marketing decisions. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Tracy Borison. I am the host of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. But here's the thing that I deeply believe about marketing is that one brain is great. 4 brains are greater. So we're going to have a conversation today with a whole bunch of great marketing brains. One of my favorite things about this crew we have today is we have different backgrounds, different experience in different parts of the marketing industry, different areas of focus now. And so we're going to be able to explore a whole bunch of different things as we go through the conversation today. For those of you who are new to the show, this is not just a conversation for all these beautiful faces that are on live. This is a conversation for all of us. And so if you are in the comments, please let us know that you are here. Say hello. I feel like people always say, let us know where you are. Not really my thing. If you want to tell us where you are, that's cool. If not, also fine. But just let us know that you're here, because sometimes there's many people who watch and we don't know that you're here, but we like to know that you're here. Plus, we would love to answer your questions. So today we're talking about what opens the right doors when it comes to marketing. And often in marketing, people think about awareness. We just need to get our brand out there and then that's it, right? Marketing done. Good job, self. But what if marketing could help you open the right doors to building community, building business, sales, whatever your ROI or goals are related to. So we're going to talk about that today. So if you have any questions specifically in that arena, please share them in the chat. We have some lovely people joining us. Hello, Paula. Welcome to the show. Samina, howdy doody. I'm pretty sure the doody should be like DOODY, but just saying. Unless this is your howdy duty that you're doing, because I asked you to say hello. Also good. Vinette, welcome to the show. This is going to be fun, you guys, because this is about opening doors, and we're going to explore a whole bunch of new ways to open doors about our thinking in marketing today. So again, for those of you who are joining us live, if you have questions or comments or perspectives or insights, if you happen to be a marketer yourself, please share them. We would love, love, love to hear them. Take a deep breath, Tracy. Yes, we're good. Let's start with some introductions, shall we? So let's go around the room and see what lovely marketing brains we have with us today. Paula, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Good morning, Tracy. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Paula Schaper. I am the founder of 33 Dolphins Growth Strategy. We are a boutique management consulting firm based in Vancouver, and we focus on helping SME businesses, particularly B2B companies, with their growth strategy and achieve something I call marketing independence. So that's me.
Okay, so before we go on, can you define for us marketing independence, Paula?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's a quick story. I ran a digital agency for 25 years, and I'm Irish, by the way. So my definition of a quick story, maybe not the same as everyone else. I ran an agency for 25 years, and I found often that clients would come to us and they were really dependent on their agency for a lot of marketing decisions. And so what you would end up having is you would have 5 different agencies all fighting it out to be the top dog, and the client just getting churned up in a blender in the middle. And so when you have a core strategy in your business and you own your marketing internally, that's what I call marketing independence, where you're driving the bus and everybody else is getting on as a passenger to help you out.
Oh, I love that, because I often talk about marketing authenticity, and I feel like the foundation is very much the same, that this is about you and not about other people. So I love that. Welcome, Paula. And if you all didn't notice, we had a sneaky person sneak in who's late, although it's also very late where Philip is. We'll hear about it in a moment. But Peter, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Tracy. Thank you for the invitation. When I first heard of this program, show, podcast, whatever you like to call it nowadays. I originally thought that you had named it after me because I have often been called a crazy, stupid marketer. So, as introduction, I am also in Vancouver, on the beautiful wet coast of Canada. Uh, I originally worked for 10 years as a radio and television news reporter on the beat, covering fires, accidents, politicians, which is basically the same thing. And then switched after 10 years of that to being a direct response copywriter. So all of that direct mail that you used to get and all of those bad emails that you get now, I am partially to blame. I prefer to
Not the bad ones, though. The
No,
good
I
ones you get are from
I
Peter.
exactly. I was gonna say, I am to blame for the good ones, and I've never heard of any of the bad ones, because I never do them. Um, as I said, I started as a copyright direct mail copywriter at an agency here in Vancouver, and in 1994, I switched into the freelance world and have been working freelance for clients from literally one end of the globe to the other. I have had clients from Moscow to Sydney, Australia, and just about everywhere in between, doing B2B, B2C, D2C, nonprofit, you name it, I write it.
And Peter, when I met you, you said something about being a curmudgeon. Are you going to bring that to our show today?
Okay. Yes, I am a curmudgeon in that I'm not. I'm a semi-Luddite. I still have paper and pencil everywhere to write notes. Um, I have a phone that is currently off because I actually know the off switch as well as the on switch. I believe that sometimes we are too self-praisy and spend too much time in search of praise. And there's nothing wrong with somebody saying, hey, this ain't that good. And don't be afraid to learn from somebody saying, hey, this ain't that good, as long as the person also says, here's another way you could try. And I think that's what a curmudgeon's job is to say, hey, have you thought about doing it like this? And so I bring to the table that, hey, wait a minute, maybe AI ain't the answer. Although I do say, and I've written this many times on LinkedIn, I use the other AI, I use actual intelligence.
Oh, I feel like there's a lot of places we could go with that. But let's finish doing our introductions. It's great to have you, Peter. Welcome. Mark.
Great. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks, Tracy, and great to meet everyone. My name is Mark Latimer. I'm one of the founders at Grateful PR. We are a heart-centered PR firm that works with mindful entrepreneurs, brands, and businesses. And I'm a bit of a traveler myself. I just came back from 2 months in Mexico, 2 weeks in Puerto Vallarta, and a month and a half in Sayulita, which was amazing. I really enjoy all kinds of things, but one of my passions is singing and songwriting, which I got to do plenty of when I was there. And great to meet everyone and really excited to learn and share.
Oh, excited to have you, Mark. When I last chatted with Mark, he was in Sayulita, and you could see all the beautiful sunshine and everything behind him. And I think we had like a foot of snow at the time. And I was like, travel. Excited to have you, Mark.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Philip. I thought maybe you fell asleep.
No, but it's bedtime here, and that's challenging.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm the second microphone guy with a green background today. I'm Filip Fucic. I'm in Croatia, and like I said, it's bedtime here. So sorry for being late. I meant no disrespect. In general, what I do is pricing, expertise-based pricing, to be particular about it, because I think it doesn't really pay to be smart anymore. It used to, it doesn't, and I hate that. So I mostly work with solopreneurs to help them raise their prices, and I I really enjoy that work.
And it's as far as I'm concerned, Philip knows everything about pricing, which is why he's joining us today, because pricing is one of those things that is, again, we're talking about awareness from a marketing perspective. We don't necessarily think about pricing, but when we talk about what opens the right doors, our pricing does have a big impact on that. So I'm excited to talk about that today. So for all of you who have listened to these wonderful introductions, we have a very diverse group of marketing experts here today. So please feel free to put your questions or comments in the comment box, because we want to be able to answer. Oh, there's already a question. I didn't even have time to ask a question. Paula's way ahead of me. This is going to block a whole bunch of people probably. Do people in different countries learn about marketing in different ways? For example, we learn from the likes of Kotler, etc. Right product, right price, right place, right cost, and all the updates, i.e. psychology, politics, people, etc. I wonder, what do they learn in Europe? And is it different to the likes of Russia or Africa or India? Would there be common themes we all use? So we have a few Canadians here. We have Philip, who I believe knows all of the history of the European everything, at least in my experience. So what are your thoughts? And Mark, too, I'd love to hear from you, because you've done a lot of traveling. I believe you were in India at one point. So I'd love to hear what everybody's thoughts are on how do we even talk about marketing? Is it the same? Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I can jump in. So I lived on and off in India for about 8-9 years. I was there for 2.5 years during the lockdown, and happy to overstay. I was in Goa, North Goa, a place called Arambol, full of hippies and a great place for music. And India, I would say from a marketing perspective, a lot of it is quite similar, but there's going to be nuances from country to country. In general, it's fairly similar. I'm not sure. I guess it depends on what you're marketing. Yeah, I'd say if you're trying to market to a different place, if you can spend some time there and get to know people, or look for local expertise, because there will be some subtleties in how people respond to messaging.
I think that was one of the things that immediately jumped out for me, as well as the concept of like narratives and messaging, and how like cultural things play into that type of thing. Because I would say, like, again, if we're talking about today's topic, which is opening the right doors, a message that works well in North America might not work exactly the way you expect that to work in India or Croatia. I have a client right now, actually, who has offices in Vancouver, Colombia, and Greece. And it's been really interesting having these conversations about narrative, in terms of how do we make sure that these narratives are aligned. But at the end of the day, each individual location has the authority to go to market in the way that makes sense for them, to have conversations, to build relationships in the way that it makes sense culturally. So I'm with you though, Mark. Actually, I'd love to hear other perspectives too, because I do think that marketing foundations are pretty consistent.
Yeah,
Philip, you're doing a lot of head nodding and things. So what are your thoughts?
It's Kotler, Kotler all the way. So I lived in a communist country up until the 90s, which I was a kid then. So our marketing on uni was Kotler. So that's the basis of it. However, although the people learn marketing from the same book, I think the application is quite different. Because at least for Europe is not Europe, of course. There's a huge diversity of opinions and stuff. But still, from my perspective, it's easier for me to be understood marketing wise by a Canadian or an Australian, that they're about the same, but not an American. I'm accustomed to Americans, but I have to change the tune. I have to change the attitude, the angle in order to be equally understood by Americans. And if I try talking like that in one of the other markets, I would probably fall flat on my face. So there is a market difference in what you can or cannot say, and what are you allowed to put as the first thing, right? Something like that.
Mhm. Pierre, what are your thoughts? Because I know you do a lot of like direct marketing copywriting.
Well,
I'm sure that went to multiple different places.
I'm going to put my curmudgeon hat on here for a second and say that the language that we should be speaking to all of the consumers out there, business or consumers at home, the language should be the same, but with slightly different accents. And I think that's the key. The basic needs and desires of your customers are exactly the same. A family of 4 in Moscow, dad wants to make sure that everybody's happy at home, and mom wants to make sure that everybody's happy at home, and that the kids are fed and they go to a good school and they ended up in a better job than you do. And that's the exact same if it's Moscow, Sydney, Johannesburg, Vancouver, Calgary, Croatia, Florida, anywhere. The family unit wants to make sure the same advances are happening. So when I'm writing for different markets, I make sure that my messaging hits those basic core. They want to be loved. They have the same fears. They have the same drives. They have the same desires. I'll just put certain accents that are localized to that market. Certain words that I can use in America are simply not understood in Japan when it's translated into Japanese. And I've had my copy translated into about 6 different languages, and I always make sure that I translate it back so that they're capturing what I'm really trying to say. So that I mean, even with images, there were images we were using into Japan, and I have a classic example of we created a direct mailer where we wanted to say how great our customer service people were. So we had this wonderful stock image of a young lady with the headset and the computer, and she's doing this to say it's okay to give me a call, except, and I saw Philip smiling because you know that in Japan, that's an obscene gesture. And we had to take it out before, because we caught it at the last second. But it's not something that 95% of the world would even think is an obscene gesture. In Japan, it is. So that was an accent to our messaging. And I think the messaging at core has to be the same.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Paula? Especially, I mean, like we're kind of just talking about messaging in general. So what are your thoughts on that, and how we can, or what we need to pay attention to so that it is opening the right doors?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we're talking about cross-cultural marketing and different regions and different parts of the world, at the end of the day, marketing in its core is psychology. It's understanding human beings, what makes human beings tick, how to reach them, how to connect with them. And so the foundational pieces don't change. Psychology doesn't change dramatically across, different countries, different continents, different languages. But as everyone else has said, I mean, I don't know that I have anything to add to that. It's really about understanding the people you're communicating to and the environment in which they're communicating and they're existing. And I think it's something that marketers on the whole really got, slapped up the face with in the last 3 years, because we went into 2020 after a period of relative prosperity, relative health, relative economic stability, social stability. Things had been trucking along pretty comfortably for decades at that point. I mean, with the exception of the 2008 banking crash, we really hadn't had a major anything in a very long time in our world. And then 2020 hit, and we've all been on this global roller coaster ride ever since of, lockdowns and diseases and fear and economic unrest, and now we have social unrest. We have wars happening in 2 different parts of Europe, and people are responding differently. And I think that's something that a lot of companies, when we talk to them, when we start working with them, they're confused. I don't know if you guys are finding the same thing, but your clients are saying, I don't know what's going on. This isn't working anymore. It worked, so I don't know what's happening. People aren't behaving. And it's, well, people are in a different financial situation. They have different fears. And you've got to understand how what's happening in the world is impacting the human being that's making the decision, because that's how you can connect and communicate with them. And target markets are changing. They're pivoting, they're shifting. So there's a lot changing. And I think that's sort of what we're seeing, right? Is that psychology piece.
Mhm. This is so
Paula, Paula, don't you
Okay.
think though that change is the only constant in the universe? I mean, I've been around long enough to have worked through 2001, 9/11, and how that dramatically changed everything we were doing. I go back even further into the 80s and early 90s, where there was such a boom that you could do anything and be successful. So I think that idea of, things are different now than they were 10 years ago. They were different than 2 years ago. They were different than 5 minutes ago. I mean, things happen so quickly that I think that it's a constantly changing universe, but that if you keep to those core emotional requirements of people, you won't go wrong.
100%. I think I'd actually take it a little bit differently, in that the more things change, the more they're just the same, Peter. And I mean, you talked about like 9/11 and the early 90s and the late 80s, and the reality is, you think about direct mail. You're a direct mail copywriter. The strategies of how to write a direct mail flow haven't changed since we were mailing out letters, to landing pages, and I think sometimes we like to present things as completely innovative and new ideas, and they're really just the same clothing being recycled. We're just upcycling and recycling. So I think a lot, you're right, hasn't changed. But I also think that as marketers, and if you think about some of the young marketers that are coming up today, never known a world without the internet, never known a world without electricity. They've got a bit of they've been shortchanged, I think, in the sense that some of that foundational continuity has been abandoned in favor of bright, shiny new object syndrome. And so we really focus on tactics. We've people coming out of marketing going, well, I've got a Google Ads certificate, and I've got I got a Facebook Ads certificate, and I've got a HubSpot certificate, and I've got and they've got all these things that tell them how to click and where to click and when to click. But what's missing is how do you develop a buyer persona? How do you develop a messaging? And so I think that's the piece that's really got people in the gut, is that if you haven't built those skills, or you haven't had an opportunity to work on those kinds of projects, then your whole world has shifted, because things that you assumed were true and never changing. This is our buyer persona. It never changes. Well, guess what? It just did, and it shifted in a big way. And so I think those are the pieces I think that are really impacting people. It's less about the marketing strategy and more about being able to adapt.
I
Well,
think
and this is
also,
what I was
Mhm.
hearing too, is that like this need or like the benefit of being curious, right? If things are going to change,
Mhm.
what changed? What can I do that matches that? How do I respond? And how do I respond as the brand I am, not just like how does everybody respond, because not everybody's going to respond the same. Not everybody has the same kind of product, not everybody has the same kind of service. So how do we respond? What would we do? And this is the thing I always find interesting, is that I think a lot of times, especially in marketing, we don't really think about those things. We see what our competitors have done. We read books like The Rockefeller Habits, and then we're like, oh, we know what to do, right? Like, we'll just do the same thing the Rockefellers did in the 1920s, even though there was no technology and I'm selling a SaaS software, right? Like maybe there's some more exploration that needs to go into that, because if we actually are going to look at this from a perspective of opening the right doors, okay, this was opening the right doors. It's not. So we could like stay there it's not, someone save me, or we could get to the place where we're like, okay, it's not doing what it was doing before. How can it? Right. And get creative and get curious.
Yeah. One thing that doesn't really translate that well internationally, and one thing that definitely did change in the last 3 years, if especially 10, is pricing. Because you would get absolutely nowhere with prices from 3 years ago. Whatever we're talking about, I usually focus on skilled work, right? We went from different times, let's say, and even the outlook on what a paycheck is and what is important about that paycheck. So, the whole work from home thing went from fantasy to being one of the main things that people think about these days. And internationally, especially, this is something that people struggle. $50 is not $50. So yes, even if you translate it into another type of currency, it's still not the same amount. You could absolutely take a price in rand, so South African rand, turn it into dollars and offer it at parity, and you would be laughed out of the building, because what kind of a price is that? Well, that's the normal price in South Africa because purchasing power parity is much lower, blah, blah, blah. But, and of course, if you went with like a New York price and came to Cape Town and offered it in rand, directly translated, you would be shocking your clients, because that's not a normal price. So one thing that people say is, I'll just have one price for everybody. Even with SaaS, it doesn't work, because for some people, $500 is, good part of a paycheck, but nothing special. For some people, it's 6 paychecks at parity, right? So that's one thing that didn't translate very well through space and time. And this is why I find it interesting. If we're talking about things that open doors, understanding what the price should be is really important, because even if they dig your text, if they're confused by your price, that's going to spoil a lot of the other efforts, right? It's about context.
I think you make a great point here too, Philip, about like how the pieces of the marketing puzzle need to match each other. So this is why I think it's interesting when people have like pulled something from this book, but like, this is what our competitors price at. So we're just going to match the pricing, and then we're going to do this. And we like create this like weird mashup of actually confusing things. So we worked so hard on this narrative, but then we get to the demo and it's confusing. And then we get to the price and it's confusing. And now I've just created so much confusion in my buying process that this is why I like the concept of looking at this from opening doors, right? That's like going through the buying process and slamming doors in people's faces as they go, right? Like, not a lot of people are going to get through the funnel that way. But what about if we looked at this from the perspective of opening the doors? This is why I like this. Mark, you have been very quiet since you started the conversation. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the international pricing, and having been in many different countries, there's often, especially with SaaS, you can sign up for your favorite web platform in India or Philippines and often get a huge discount. So if you know anyone there, definitely shop around internationally for those kinds of things. So if you think the Black Friday deals have been good in America or Canada, check out other countries. So huge opportunities there. Also, in thinking about marketing to these places, you can't forget that there are ways to geographically set your pricing differently. So if it's just the same across the board, maybe you're just focused on a few different markets, but being able to have your web developer set it up so that you're displaying different prices to different markets could be something to think about.
Yeah,
Paula,
these
could
are
I-
things that are available, folks.
one, I'd like to go back, Paula, to something you said earlier about exploring and opening doors. Opening doors is important. Walking through the door is much more important. And the idea of exploration, as I said, I've had clients all over the world, and I've also been very lucky to be able to go to all of those places and visit with the clients. And one of the things I do whenever I go to Moscow, Sydney, wherever, I go to the store and I see how much is a jug of milk, how much is a loaf of bread, how much is gas, and I talk to people about, gee, do you buy milk often? Do you buy the newspaper every day? Do you never buy the newspaper? What are you buying? What are you shopping? I'm exploring what they're doing, and I think that I harken back to when I was a child, and my mother used to always say, "Go outside and play." We didn't have the internet. We didn't have video games. We went outside and made games up. We used our imagination and our creativity to find games. And I think what's missing in a lot of the opening the door idea is walk through the door, go out and explore, talk to people, meet people, and talk to them. Don't just look at statistics. Don't just look at the numbers. Don't just read a book. Get out and talk to the people who are out there in your marketplace, wherever it might be, whatever they're doing, and talk to them and find out what are they thinking. As a copywriter, I love to hear and see and read feedback from customers because I want to match the way they talk about the product. Because if I can talk about the product the way they talk about the product, we're now having a conversation, and a conversation will lead to a sale. A monologue will never lead to a sale. A dialogue will. So I think that to open doors, go outside and meet people. Don't just, oh, he's my friend because on Facebook he's my friend. No, talk with them. Get on the phone with them, meet them in person, have coffee, have tea, have whatever you want to have, but sit down and listen and talk. And that will open so many doors.
I love that so much because I think I've actually had this thought many times since I started in the marketing industry. Like, we're all consumers, right? Like, we consume things, we consume other people's marketing, whether that is a TV ad or a radio ad or a direct mail piece, or we consume, and we know what it feels like to consume these things. And yet somehow, from a marketing perspective, we become so, maybe it is distracted by the targeting and the this and the that and the clicks, right? Like I can do all these clicks, and I get distracted by the fact that, like, what is this experience actually going to be for a human? And would I like that? Would the people who are like me, whose problems I'm solving, like that? And this is what I experience, is what you're saying, walking through the door, Peter, as like, I can theoretically extrapolate a lot of things. Although I'm pretty sure people can theoretically extrapolate time travel. And we'll see if that ends up being possible. But that doesn't mean that it means anything. And that this is about doing things, taking time, efforts that like resonate with people, not all people, but some people. And I think there's a big component of that that is dependent on whether or not we resonate with that. Paula, I see this as being like kind of tied into the marketing definition that you created, the independent marketing. So like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts in that kind of this concept of walking through the door?
Well, I think there's a need almost to have the answer and get it right. Like there's this fear of marketing failing. And so there's this, that's where do these 3 tactics, follow this formula, this kind is there's this, wanting to get it right. And walking through the doors sometimes means tripping on the stairs and falling flat on your face, right? It means things
poll.
don't.
Can I take a quick poll? How many of us here have had a marketing something that failed? Okay, Philip doesn't want to admit it. Yes. He has a whole podcast about it.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I
That's true.
I want to know why you limited it to a marketing effort
Right.
that failed. You
So-
should have asked multiple marketing efforts that failed.
Multiple.
Yeah.
And I think I agree, because I agree with you, Paula. I think especially for like young marketers, they're so concerned about creating something that doesn't work. And I always I used to tell this every time I hired a new like marketing coordinator. You will have an idea that ends up being an epic failure. That doesn't mean it's not fun. It doesn't mean it didn't like create resonance with someone. Doesn't mean you didn't learn something. It just means it didn't deliver. This is what marketing is about.
It's a core tenet of being a marketer. It's the art that combines with the science. That we don't just not teach marketers. We don't teach executives. We don't teach sales. I mean, you think about the sales team, and the tension between sales and marketing. Sales is a job in which you are guaranteed to fail somewhere in the neighborhood of 85% of the time. 85% of your leads are not going to ever buy from you.
If you're
For
good.
whatever reason, if you're good. Yeah. And yet we expect marketers to hit it out of the park every single time. Like, how dare you do it? That ad didn't work. Nope, it didn't.
Speaking from my direct mail background, we had a basic rule that success was 1 out of 9. If you did 9 tests and 1 actually worked to expectation, you were a successful direct mail marketer, because there are and I have boxes full of the worst dogs you ever saw in your life that just absolutely went nowhere, including mailing 5,000 pieces that got 0 response.
But I think, okay,
But we learned from it, and that's what when you talked about going outside the door and tripping down the stairs, and then getting up and doing something else, and not spending time doing autopsies on what didn't work. Learn from that quickly and move on to the next one. I had a boss who used to say, if it didn't work, don't repeat it. If it did work, do it over and over again. Just that simple.
And yet, like Paula Madison Green asked a great question in the chat a little while ago about whether the pandemic and austerity and everything we're going with has changed the emphasis in terms of marketing. And to your point, Peter, I think we have to be careful about saying that didn't work, I'm never going to do it again. Because as things change around us, what works changes. And one of the things that came up for me in response to Paula's question was the data started to show around late 2020, early 2021, people weren't responding to fear-based marketing anymore. Scarcity marketing didn't work. Fear-based marketing wasn't working because people were feared out. They'd had enough. They wanted hope. They wanted inspiration. They wanted reassurance. And so that pivoted. I suspect that will come back, though, at some other points. Like if you look through history, you look at the 20s, you look at, some of the really old vintage marketing from the early days of marketing, we go through these cycles. And so I tell my clients now, try direct mail. Don't email people, send them a letter. See how it works, because nobody's sending a letter. You stand out immediately.
Do you remember how ridiculous it was?
Sorry, go ahead.
Philip.
Just a second. I just wanted to say, do you remember just how ridiculous an electric car was as a concept for ages?
Yeah.
For ages. We thought we would get flying cars first, right? Sorry, Peter.
No, I was just going to say, I guess I should have quoted him more accurately. It was, if it didn't work, don't do it exactly the same thing again. If it did work, do it again. But if it didn't work, make a variation of it and try it again. Because, and this is one of the greatest rules of direct response marketing and any marketing, test. Always be testing. And if you're always testing new stuff, you're knocking on a lot of doors and one of them is going to open. And that's what you have to do. So, yeah, just want to clarify that.
It sounds to me like, for the most part, we have educated guesses. We run experiments, and then we figure out what's working and what doesn't. So, is it really failure, right? If you're learning from it, I think that was one of in the comments there. But the best you can do is make good guesses and, stick with the ones, like you said, that work. So I agree with Peter.
Well, I agree with Paula, though, where she said that people have this fear of failure. So they try to make everything absolutely perfect. And truth be told, it's the imperfections. It's the ones that are slightly odd or slightly off or slightly different that attract the eye and get those people to go, hey, there's something about this, that picture that seems a little askew, or those wording that seems a little odd or different, that attracts the people. So this, again, the old adage, don't let best be the enemy of better. Just do good stuff and you'll succeed. Trying always to hit, the Academy Award, Oscar winning performance every time, you will never be an actor.
And also, no one has, right? Like, no marketer is walking around with like all of the trophies for every single marketing campaign they ever thought of, right? Every single big business that you can think of has had a marketing campaign that didn't work. Not just one, a whole bunch of them. Right? But I do think that this is a challenge in the marketing arena, is that especially for small businesses and for solopreneurs, is that we think we need to make it perfect, but then we're also measuring perfect against someone else's definition of perfect, right? So then I'm saying, like, I'm going to look at this campaign. Actually, I had a conversation with an advertising coach last week, and he was like, we're going to give you examples of all of the best advertising campaigns, and then you can just pick the ones that you like. And you're like, well, I mean, that seems like a minimum viable. I mean, I didn't say any of this, but I was thinking minimum viable strategy. This isn't about like you figuring out what you would do. It doesn't have anything to do with the relationships you want to build with your customers. It just has to do with what won some awards 10 years ago. And I mean, sure, it's interesting to know. Like, I'm never against knowledge, but the ability to look at those things and say, does this match me, my brand? Does this match the people I'm trying to talk to? Does this match the door I'm trying to open? And if it doesn't, have the confidence in yourself to say, nope, that's not the right thing for me.
I can't eat awards. I actually sat with a client one time and he was searching for ideas, and we came up with horoscopes for dogs. We were going to sell horoscopes for dogs. And he said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. 6 months later, he was making about $1 million a month selling horoscopes for dogs, because he sat there and said, it's so stupid it might work. Mm-hmm. Just be open to what's out there and more importantly, be open to what's in here, what's inside your head, that creativity that you can generate inside, and listen to the creativity of others. Yes, read Caples and all the other, and read Gary Halbert to learn how to write copy, but write, do it yourself, and exercise that muscle in between the 6 inches between your ears.
Yeah. Well, and I think I love this comment Paula has added here, except I would not say that we are sadly all fatally flawed. Yes, we're all flawed. Is that sad? I think that's just part of being human. It's a human trait. I don't think you're the most fatally flawed person, or we're all equally tied. But then I love what Angela said here, listening to our inner askewed risk taker. I love that. Right? Yeah, we all have perceptions, we all have filters, we all have different levels of risk, and at some degree that dictates the doors we are going to be allowed to open. I might be able to sit here and be like, this is exactly how I go around opening doors. Except if you try to do that, it likely won't work, because you are not me. You don't have the same personality as me. You don't have the same experience as me. You don't have the same cultural backgrounds. You don't have the same familial backgrounds. You're not the same person as me. And so again, it's fine if you want to go out and listen to say oh, this person says these types of things can open doors. The practice is in try that on. What fits you and what doesn't fit you? And how would you bring something that's relevant to you to the market?
It's a great point, Tracy.
Yeah.
Just you brought up small businesses and them, the challenges, and I think that one of the mistakes that a business owner can make is looking at what, say, Coca-Cola is doing, or these ads that get all this attention and media attention, and then thinking that's what they have to do in order to grow their business. I remember attending a keynote presentation once by a gentleman who was part of the team behind, you remember the Coca-Cola campaign where they had the Coke machine and it went viral? It was it's probably about a decade ago now, viral video. And the whole thing was viral video. It's free, it's free, it's free. So he broke down in this room of agency owners the budget for that free viral video, production cost, hardware cost, PR cost to promote the fact that the machine was out there, radio, advertising, the promotion on YouTube, everything. They had spent several $1 million on that free viral video campaign. And the point he was making was, just because you don't pay someone to view the ad doesn't mean it's free. You have to get it in front of people's faces. And at the end of the day, if you can't get your product in front of people's faces, then the effort's going to fail, no matter how brilliant the production quality. And so I think for small businesses, that is a challenge, because agency services they're not cheap. This isn't a minimum wage type of a situation. And so if you're a small business owner, and we're all talking will fail, but if you're a small business owner and you spend $20,000 on a campaign that falls flat on its face, that could be your marketing budget for the quarter.
Yeah, this is something that I very often say. People see big businesses doing something with pricing and saying, "Oh, I can do that. Oh, discounts for Black Friday. Yes, that makes sense." No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You don't have a warehouse of your stuff that needs to go away. As Tracy likes hearing me say, you're not selling potatoes, right? So just because impulse buys in retail stores are smartly priced at 0.99 doesn't mean that your service should be, or that it's smart. It's actually pointing people at all the wrong directions, right? So yes, copying off big business in your marketing in general is bad. A very bad idea.
Yeah.
But also interesting point here, because when Coca-Cola invests $2 million in that, they don't know it's going to go viral. So the concept of investing in things you don't necessarily know are going to work. Now, the budget, also, you have to be like responsible. But there's lots of great things that you can try for a very small investment or for no, like hardly any money if you're doing social media types of activities. And even then, there's so many things. People think we're live on LinkedIn right now. People will often think like, oh, there's like one way to have a business page on LinkedIn. Nope. Nope. How would you do that? What would you do with that? I remember I worked at the Brick. So for those of you who are not Canadian, that's one of our like national retail furniture chains. And it was in the good old days before all businesses had Facebook pages, and Facebook just was getting big. So they were like, we need a Facebook page. And I was like, great. What is our Facebook page going to do? And they're like, I don't know. We just need a Facebook page. Well, like, what if people think it's for customer service, but we're not going to staff it for customer service? Then we have a problem, right? Is it going to be promotional? We can set it up to be just, no, we just need a Facebook page. And this is what we get caught up in, I think, especially now that there's like more and more new things always on the marketing front. We're always do chat GPT this and new automation for that. And we think that we need those things because they're the new hippest thing and we should stay ahead of the game. But why are you doing it? Do you have a good reason? If you don't have a good reason, it's probably not going to open doors the way you think it might.
I think that marketers are like, and everyone else who live on this planet have to realize one simple fact, that we are all absolutely and totally alike in every way because we're all 100% unique. And that idea that I am big corporation because I love my product and everybody else is going to love my product just like they love Coca-Cola or Ford or GM. Sorry, we always used to say in direct mail to new clients, only invest what you can afford to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a gamble. Marketing is often a gamble, and whether you buy a lottery ticket or go down to the racetrack or buy time on a TV station for your direct response ad or just buy a billboard somewhere, it's a gamble. And the idea is that you gamble smart, but you still have to take the gamble and never say, here he goes again from the mount, never say, why are we doing this? Always say, why not do this? And give it a try.
It makes me think, because I know a couple of you are in BC, and everywhere in BC, it's like, know your limit, play within it, if you're gambling. And I think this is a great phrase for marketing too, right? Like, know your limit, play within it. But there's a play aspect of that, which to me says experiment, explore, try things. And yeah, like, let's measure, let's see what worked, let's see what didn't. Let's not just throw a bunch of money down the toilet. Let's have some good foundational principles of like, who are we talking to? Have we been out to explore what their experience actually is? Are we thinking about what's opening doors, or are we just concerned about the number of likes we get? And there's some foundational questions that we can ask that keep us on the right spot, or keep us on the right track. But at the end of the day, marketing is a gamble. So let's set our limits.
Are you ready? Are you ready for another Peterism?
I don't
Here
know.
it comes.
Is everybody
Here it comes.
ready?
Write this down. Here it comes.
Go for it.
Think outside the box, but color inside the lines. Think outside the box, but color inside the lines. Know the rules before you break them.
Yes, very true. You know, the other thing that is important, Peter, because you mentioned about like knowing what works and what doesn't, is that no marketing tactic or campaign lives in isolation. You can have the most beautifully written direct mail letter
Yep.
and send it out to 1,000 perfectly targeted customers. If they've never heard of you, they're still not likely to pick up the phone and lay down their credit card. There's the things we do build on each other. And so sometimes when something's not working, it's not the tactic that's flawed. It's the I remember when I was younger, I once we were doing Valentine's dinner for, just moved out of the house for our boyfriends, my roommate and I spent, excuse me, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. Spent all day doing this homemade chocolate torte, right? Beautiful chocolate torte. Followed the recipe. It was gorgeous. It was glazed. It was amazing. We brought it out after dinner and went to cut through it. It was the most beautifully glazed hockey puck anyone has ever seen because I forgot the baking soda. And if you don't put baking soda in your chocolate torte, you get a chocolate hockey puck. I can prove. But we do the same thing with our marketing, right? And then you think, oh, well, it was bad chocolate. There's nothing wrong with the chocolate. I didn't put the baking soda in. Marketing's a recipe. They build on each other. And so we need to look at the ingredients.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that we could go a lot of directions from there, but Samina asked a question earlier that I want to make sure we get to before we run out of time. Do you think the consumer is just too bombarded with marketing that they have become desensitized to it? Actually, Mark, I'd love to start with you because you do a lot of work in PR, and PR is about media and consuming things. So what are your thoughts?
Sure. I don't think that the consumer is desensitized to it. We're all looking at the same stuff. We're all on social media. And when an ad resonates, when you see some marketing that really, touches the right buttons, then you click, you go through, you buy things. So that I don't think has changed. Even if, it flipped completely around and the ads were twice as prevalent. When a marketing message is powerful and resonates with the things that are going on in your life, you could see 1 million of those, and if each one hits the right button, then you'll probably visit those sites and subscribe and buy whatever it is people are selling, because it's the message that has to land. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because this is just making me think. I went to a Christmas market a couple of weekends ago, and there's like a whole bunch of vendors selling similar things. Right? There's a whole bunch of candle vendors, and there's a whole bunch of people selling art and lots of ceramics and lots of, I'm in Canada, so mittens, toques, gloves. And people choose different vendors for like a host of different reasons, right? Like maybe they like the smell of this candle because they are scent induced. Maybe they like the packaging. Maybe they like that. Like I walked by one where 20% of the proceeds were donated to build a water treatment facility in Africa, right? Like there's different things that attract different people. And so I could walk through this whole thing, and I spent like 20 minutes looking at all of this nerd art that was like burnt into wood. And I was like, this is amazing. I need this. Can I just spend $200 on this? It's not a Christmas present. I really should be buying Christmas presents. But like, that doesn't attract everybody, but it attracts me. So I think and again, I think this is a thing maybe all of us experience, right? Like, sure, I wouldn't say I'm not bombarded by emails. I mean, we just came off of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like everybody received a lot of emails, I think. But there were some things.
Sorry, I just deleted about 60,000 emails. So just a couple.
Just a few. There were a few Black Friday. Oh, did anybody buy anything for Black Friday?
There's a couple of good deals.
Of 60,000. But still, right? Like,
how do you say no to an annual subscription at half price?
No.
Some people could very easily say no to that. I'm sure. Me having like my favorite chocolate on sale and 100% of the proceeds going to like a veterans foundation, there's no in that for me. That's a heck yes, and I'm gonna do it, right? And there's different things at play too. I have a relationship with the brand. who doesn't need chocolate? Like, these are my perspectives. But so yes, I think we are bombarded, but I don't think that changes our ability to resonate with the things that are meaningful to us.
I don't think we're desensitized as much as we edit faster. There was a time not that long ago where a YouTube video had an average stay rate of something like 8 seconds. If they stayed past 8 seconds, they were going to watch your video. If they jumped off after 8 seconds, that's down to 4 seconds. There was a time where in the direct mail world, the AB pile decision was made in 2 seconds. That's now measured down to 0.8 of a second for them to decide if it's an A pile or a B pile for their mail. I think that what then happens is the marketers in the world figure, well, if your editing time is down to 2 seconds or 3 seconds, if I send you 5,000 messages at 3 seconds each, you're going to finally just watch the whole thing or read the whole thing, or I'll finally get your attention because your subconscious will say, this is something I like. So the editing speed speeded up, which made the marketers say, send more. So they edit slow. They don't edit slower. They just edit it more often, and therefore it becomes part of their life. And that's where the desensitize is. It's not them, it's us. We're desensitized to what they do.
It's an arms
Peter,
race.
I think you just proved the point that people are bombarded with marketing, and it's making marketing less effective. Because, you said editing speed, but really what's going on is there's so much coming at you that you have to make a very quick and snap decision. And so people are making decisions with a lot less information. They aren't reading past the first 3 words.
Yep.
If you're only watching 4 seconds of a video, you're getting 3 notes of the opening model and you're done. So it's this, I don't have time for this right now. Move on. And I think what we're bombarded with is bad marketing.
And do you know who we can blame for that? Whoever invented the TV remote control. Because that's where we started with the idea of, because no longer could we have to get up from the chair, walk across the room and change the channel. We could just press a button and go, nope, 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 and go through all the channels. And that was the birth of our, and I'll go back to it, our fast editing. We started to speed up how we edited things because not only did we have the selection, but we also had the tool that allowed us to next channel. Right now, I have a mouse where I can go up into the corner and hit that X as often as I like to get rid of a screen. I can hit the delete button on my emails 50 times. If I had to actually take the thing and rip it in half and put it in the garbage and then take it out of the garbage, I would do it less often.
I think this is interesting because I talk a lot about like creating a pattern of yes in marketing, right? So like we want people to say yes, I want to open this. Yes, I'll check out this crazy stupid marketing show. Yes. We wanted to create a pattern of yes. Ooh, but with this, we're like really quickly creating a pattern of no's, right? I think about like all the emails I delete on a daily basis from the same companies, and the pattern that they're creating for me is no. And it's very hard to recover from that because I have no incentive to do my part. If you're here opening a door, I no longer have any incentive to walk through that door.
Mark, I have a question for you. Those emails that you're getting in the subject line, how many of them had the word extended? Because there was a post earlier today on, there was a post earlier today on LinkedIn where someone posted about 15 emails in a row that they had, and every one of them said Black Friday extended, Cyber Monday extended, all these sales, they were all extended. And that's a classic example of us marketers saying, I don't care that you clicked away. I'm just going to send you the same over again and over again and over again. And if you didn't listen the first 3 times, I'm going to say it a 4th and 5th time, and then I'll extend it.
Well, and to Tracy's point, also this extension, this being bombarded. Usually, when you unsubscribe, the companies have like 10 days or something to really unsubscribe you, right? So, even if you tried to get out before that email, you really have to set a filter to bypass your inbox or automatically delete it if you really don't want to see it again. But I was deleting emails from like a decade, so those 60,000 weren't all Black Friday emails. But yeah, it sucks when you've already said no, I don't want to see this anymore, and 2 hours later they're like, oh, almost forgot to tell you. There should be a secondary, immediate, unsubscribe no matter what kind of super button waiting for that one.
And this is like, honestly, that's available. It's been available for years. Immediate global opt-out, it's a thing. I think most of the email service providers do it. They've done it for years. The thing is that most people forget what the consumer experience is, and they're like, oh, but we don't want to lose you. Like, here's the bonus offer to stay on the list. Right? Like, no, if someone's opted out, let them go. Right? What would you want to happen if you opted out? If you've given me enough annoying emails that I'm now at the point of opting out, there's no saving this. Don't pretend that there's something we're saving here. You haven't bothered to build anything. So I think this is a branding component of what would you do from a business perspective? If someone wanted out, would you want to keep holding on to them, or would you let them go?
Get on a bus, turn to the person next to you who's scrolling through their phone and ask a simple question. How many emails is too many? When you hear the answer.
Some days every email seems like it's too many.
Exactly.
But I also think it depends on those emails, right? Like if I'm getting emails from Jasic Chocolate, I will happily look at 3 emails a day. I like from them and not ask them why they sent me the same email twice, because I bought lots of product from them. The product is delicious. I'm not offended by the quote unquote bombardment. I read Philip's email newsletter every time it comes out. I have
twice a week.
Yeah, once a week. Sign up if you want to learn about pricing. Oh, twice
a week.
I don't even know how much I read it. But I read it every time it comes in because I know I'm going to learn something interesting about pricing. I have a couple of email newsletters where I will open them every time. And do I read all of them every time? No. But I have enough of a relationship with the distributor of that to keep it in my email until I'm interested in reading it. And I think that we forget too, yeah, sure, you can distribute a bunch of emails, but what else are you doing? To Paula's earlier point, right? What else are you doing in the market to encourage someone to open that email? Or are you?
I was afraid that people would see twice a week as bombardment, but then I made them short. And a couple of years down the line, so 250 emails later, I still have a 55% open rate. People open these, people read these because they're short and they're useful and sometimes funny.
There's usually a nice GIF in there. Yeah, I appreciate the GIF.
So what you're saying, Philip, is you listened to what your consumers said about what you were doing and you matched their requirements.
You can say that.
Well, which brings me to something else that I used to always say to people who ask me about being in marketing generally. We're the servants of the consumers. And we have to remember that role, that we're actually serving them. They're not serving us.
Okay. And I would love to dive into that, but we are already 10 minutes over for today. Folks, if you enjoyed this show, the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, starting next week is going to be a weekly show. Woo! Come back at the same time every week to have amazing conversations with marketers about what is crazy and stupid in the marketing industry and how to do things that are not crazy and stupid. Once a month, we'll have a panel conversation like this, and we will have individual conversations on the in-between weeks. So make sure you check those out. All of the past recordings are on YouTube. You can find them on LinkedIn too, but it's harder to do that. So follow the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show on YouTube, and you'll get access to all of the amazingly good stuff. Paula, Peter, Philip, Mark, thank you so much for sharing all of your wonderful expertise today. I like literally we could talk about all of these things for a very long time. And that's what happens when you get curious marketing brains in the same room. So thank you guys so much for sharing your curiosity with us today. Thank you to all of the amazing people in the chat. Paula, Samina, Vinette, Christina, Michelle, Pooja, Fahad, Angela. Thank you so much for joining us in the conversation today. And thank you so much for all of your questions. Great questions were asked. Thank you for prompting that, because I think everybody learned from each other. Ben Baker's sneaking in right at the end. He was on the show last time. A couple of us know him. He's watching the replay. Enjoy the replay. And thank you so much for joining us for the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show. And until next time, permission to do you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Tracy.